Hello, I'm Aloysius. I'm the owner of Haunted Harbor Tours. And today, what we've got is a very interesting story due to its historic accuracy and its historic record. Because this case of Virginia versus a slave who murdered a plantation owner went to court. Here is the court record for this trial, which, holy shit, it actually went to trial. Recently, I covered the Myrtles fucking plantation, which it's a story about a slave who murdered a bunch of people on a plantation with a poisonous cake, and it's not true. Despite the fact that it's been shown on Unsolved Mysteries, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, you name it, it's been featured on everything. Everybody knows it's actually untrue. The historic record, so the show those children died of yellow fever, and that bugs me. I don't know if it's a revenge fantasy or if it's told out of like some sort of inherent racism from Louisiana, but the fact is regardless of the motivation of that story, it is revisionist. And I hate revisionist history. That's what I hate most of all. I think that if we are going to tell stories of history, we better do our damn sure to make sure they're true. When I'm going to tell a story, sure, I'll tell the story of the Myrtles plantation, but I'm going to let you know that it's false. And that's why I'm really excited about this one. This one is truly historically accurate, and it's true. And it's a little bit Cask of Amontillado or Cape Fear, in that these are two people that are just perfect for hating each other. You know, Hetty Cooley, the slaver, wife of Benjamin Cooley, who had just moved to this plantation, and Harriet, who is really, really angry about what they have done to her, and the fact that she is trapped on this plantation and she's being treated like a child and a slave, and her strong, strong desire for revenge upon these people for what they've done to her. And it makes for just the most amazing series of events that eventually lead to somebody being left in a smokehouse, laying on top of two dead pigs, covered in burns and bruises. And before we get into this video, I am going to take a moment to say, if you are enjoying this content, please hit subscribe. I am trying to build my subscribers here. Also, if you give me the thumbs up, if you give me the like, that'll help me raise on the algorithm, and that will help me get to more people. Guys, I love telling ghost stories. I love researching ghost stories. I'm going to do a lot of really cool ghost stories. The more people I get commenting, the more excited I feel people are about my content, the more encouraged I am to actually really put time into the YouTube channel. Okay? So please hit comment, like, subscribe. Send this to your friends. If you think, hey man, so-and-so will love this, send it to them. Please. Help me get my name out there. And also, maybe come to Annapolis. Take a ghost tour with me. I give ghost tours in the state of Maryland. And I plan to do investigations this winter. So, you know. Anyway, let's get into this disgusting murder. The year is 1861. Hetty Cooley married Benjamin Cooley. Benjamin is her second husband. The first had passed, and she moved down to Virginia, to the Shenandoah Valley, to a place called the Belle Plantation, a place I very much intend to go to this January or February. I plan to do a long visit in the Shenandoah Valley. I'm very excited about that. Now, the house slave's name is Harry, and Harriet is very hostile towards Hetty Cooley. I have no sympathy for a slaver. And Hetty, whether she likes it or not, is a slaver. I don't think she signed on for it. You know, we're not given the choice of what society we live in. It's part of the culture that she's in, and she is a slaver. Hetty Cooley is getting bullied by Harriet and picked on and teased. Harriet's saying mean things to her in front of her about her. And Hetty goes to her friend, a woman named Miss Mary Moore, and she says, I can't take this. I can't take this. This is so mean. It's so cruel. And I would never let anybody else talk to me this way. I have to do something about this. I have to get her to stop. And so she confronts Harriet about the way she's being treated. And Harriet slaps her. Benjamin Cooley steps in. And Benjamin decides that he is going to restrict her privileges. Like a fucking parent punishing a toddler. He's going to take away her ability. He's grounded her. Basically, she's not allowed to leave the plantation now. She has to stay home from an event that her friend is hosting. So her friend was hosting a meeting of some variety. Doesn't really say in the transcripts what. But her friend's name is Sally. And she's noted as a free woman of color. Probably the easiest way to put it. Not how it's written here. Sally asks Harriet, hey, why weren't you at this meeting? What happened? And Harriet explains that to be able to go, she had to ask for permission. And she didn't want to ask for permission. And she said, quote, Harriet said before she would ask Mr. Cooley, she would see him to the devil. She would make her see the devil yet, in reference to Miss Cooley. Now, by that time, we were outside the door, and she said, if I can't do anything else, I will poison her. She laughed and said, have you got any poison? I said, no, indeed. I never have any poison in my hands in my life, and I never want any. If you would undertake such a thing as that, they would hang you. She said, I don't care what they do with me afterwards. I will have my revenge. And then I went on home. Now, in the cross-examination, she explains that she was living with Mr. Braggs in sight of Belgrove. Miss Cooley once told Miss Braggs that me and Harriet must be kept apart. And I think that's because Miss Cooley is really scared of Harriet. Sally's afraid of her. She says this. I had heard her threaten to kill her. She as good as told me she would kill her. I did not think she was in joke when she laughed. But I told our other people, the other black men and women of the area, again, not what's written there, I would not like to get into a scrimmage with Harriet. So even her friend Sally is afraid of Harriet. About 2 weeks after Harriet and Miss Cooley had their first altercation. And I described it earlier as a slap. It ends up, Miss Mary Moore actually called it a scrimmage. In a staircase, the slave stairs, going up into the rest of the plantation, they had a actual physical fight. Harriet was, again, being mean and nasty and saying very hurtful things to Miss Cooley. Mr. Cooley, Benjamin Cooley, was away. He had left town, and Hetty says to Miss Moore one more time, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to go talk to her. It's done. And she goes off to argue with Hetty. Miss Moore notes that this is the last time she sees Mrs. Cooley until 12 o'clock that evening after everything's said and done. Hetty Cooley leaves without even so much as a scarf, and she goes off to argue with Harriet, which, I mean, really seems like a bad idea, but whatever. Now, it should be noted, I think this is early morning. In the mid-afternoon, Benjamin's brother, who is notably a bit simple in the mind. He's not a very sharp individual. He shows up, he goes to the smokehouse, and without going in, he sets a fire. And then people start noticing the key to the smokehouse is actually missing. And though you could start the fire from outside, it seems, you can't get in. That evening, a man named James Gordon, who, by the way, is just a giant pile of human garbage. If you want to understand just how much of a pile of human garbage, check his testimony in the description below. Holy shit, that dude is awful. Anyway, so James Gordon and Harriet's husband come home and they smell what they describe as burning wool. Now, this man says, that's bad. And he sends Harriet's husband to go make sure all of the African-American black people that are on the plantation are okay and that the fire's not there. But that's not how he actually says it. His actual quote is probably the most racist thing I have ever read in my life. And no, I'm not going to repeat what he said. Holy shit. was he a racist? He goes off to the smokehouse, and he finds that to be the source of the smell. And there's a lot of drama over the missing key. I'm not going to get into all that. But when he arrives at the smokehouse, he explains that somebody just hands him the key to the smokehouse. He doesn't even note who it is, but he has the key. He unlocks the smokehouse. He walks in, and what he finds is Hetty Cooley laying on either side of two pig heads. Both of her feet are in the fire, and he says that her face is just beaten and bloodied. Hetty is covered in burns all over her body from laying in a smokehouse all day. Initially, they're not sure if she was up in the rafters of the smokehouse and that she took a fall, or if this is a suicide attempt. Hetty locked herself in the smokehouse in an attempt to suicide, and they believe the motivation for her desire to kill herself is because Abraham Lincoln is about to win the presidency. And a lot of it's, I know, it's fucking weird. And it makes a lot of sense as well, because, there was a lot of fear that Abraham Lincoln would win. A lot of people in the South were saying, Abraham Lincoln was saying, hey, I agree with the abolitionist cause. I am, in agreement that, slavery shouldn't exist, but I'm not an abolitionist, and I am not going to abolish slavery. But that's, to get people to vote for the other guy, the Southern newspaper man was definitely insisting that Abraham Lincoln would take your slaves from you. That makes sense. It's a lot of fear-mongering in politics. So people are afraid in Virginia that Abraham Lincoln is going to win. They assume that she had attempted suicide because she was just very, very uncomfortable with the idea that Abe would win. But it quickly becomes apparent that that's not the case, that she wasn't suicidal, although that is the initial response. Now, when they get her up to her room and they get her into bed, she is alive, she's breathing, and she's coherent-ish. She's speaking, her facilities aren't there. Probably because her brain has taken some severe damage due to the heat. Also, it seems as though she's been knocked in the head a few times, and we'll get to that. She is asked questions, and she's pretty much just answering, yes, yes, yes to all. So the medical examination of her, the doctor who first shows up, he first just sees the burns. He's thinking she's fallen, she, messed up her face in the fall, and that she's burned. And they ask her questions like that, and they're like, well, what happened? She's like, my head hurt. And, it's incoherent. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They find a piece of cloth wrapped around her neck, and when they cut it away, they're not sure what the cloth was. I think the reason why they make a point of saying that she left without a scarf was because they thought it might have been a scarf. They pull that away. They actually see handprints and bruises around her neck as well. Seems later that piece of cloth was actually used to drag her by the neck. They also find a lot of scratches and bruises and lacerations that come from violent blows. And some people who testify at this point make clear they think that she was a suicide because of Abraham Lincoln. They think that she had fallen. They think that she had locked herself in the smokehouse. But doctors start showing up. And then a pair of what seem to be forensic scientists and start investigating the newly discovered crime scene that's discovered about 2 weeks after her fall. And this is where it gets very interesting, and the evidence becomes very clear. This plantation is a livestock plantation. This is not cotton from further south, and it's not tobacco. What they're working with there is meats. And there's this room that must not get a lot of use. When I go out to this plantation, and I really, 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 really hope they see this video and like it and actually have me out there. There is a room that must not get much use. It's what's referred to as a pig room. It seems to be attached to the kitchen. It's almost like a pantry maybe, but I think it's where they keep meats in that room. One of the young slaves who are working there reports that he's seen a lot of blood splattered on the wall. And when the forensic scientists actually come and they look at this room, they look at the splatters, and I mean, it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that show Dexter. I never cared for Dexter, but there's a lot of talk about blood splatters and the ways that blood splatters are created. And they do that in this document. I don't want to read a lot of the gruesome testimony of what the blood was like or any of that. But they are looking at this and saying this is a person who was beaten. And then they find the scarf, they find drag marks where the cloth or scarf or whatever it was that was wrapped around Hetty's neck was dragging her along the dirt to the smokehouse. And in that room, the pig room, they find an apron, Harriet's apron. And at that point, there's enough evidence. They find a lot of other stuff in there that also points to it. But the apron is, it's kind of the smoking gun. Hidden, it's covered in blood, it's tucked away. And that's when they arrest Harriet. Now, this isn't cut and dry. Harriet is found guilty. And she is locked in a prison for quite a while until, actually, as far as I can tell, she was released when the war was over and when slaves were freed. She was released and she vanished. We don't know what happened to Harriet after that. Obviously, I don't think it was proven without a question of a doubt. Hetty was murdered with fists and with overexposure to heat. There was no murder weapon. And the biggest smoking gun there is the apron. Now, they also brought in some of Hetty's clothes and showed patches of dirt with samples of dirt inside of the smokehouse, on the way to the smokehouse, and in the peg room. And they showed all of that dirt on her body. There's pretty clear evidence that Harriet is the one who killed Hetty. But there are a lot of people these days, and I totally understand, who feel that this is an uncertain case. There's only one person with motive. There's only one person who has stated a desire to kill Hetty. There's really only a couple of people in the house at that given time. Mr. Cooley was off running cattle to Virginia, or to another area of Virginia. A lot of other people were away. Most of Hetty's friends were off visiting family, and it was a very limited amount of people in that house. That Harriet was down in the kitchen by the pig room, and Hetty went down to go speak to her, and then Hetty's never seen again. So it's all, in my opinion, it's all pretty clear. Harriet is most likely guilty. Question of a doubt? I don't know. But she was found guilty in the court of law, and she was locked away. But to this day now, Hetty still lingers at that plantation. And there are a lot of people who have seen her there and had encounters with her there. From what I understand, she's a fairly active ghost. And it's because of all of this, because of the fact that there's historic record, and this is pretty much exactly what I hunt for when I'm looking for the good stories to cover. Now, I cover a lot of other stuff. In fact, I think next week or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be putting out a video on South Mountain. There's so rarely a clear view of history quite like this one. Now, it's not perfect. Absolutely not. So Hetty's ghost lingers at this place. Hopefully this January, I'll be able to go out there. February, I'll be able to go out there, and I will try to interact with her. I think that is probably one of the more interesting places. Plus, I can go out and see John Brown, who is a personal hero of mine. Out of anybody in history, and any American, John Brown is a personal hero of mine, and I can't wait to go to Harper's Ferry and see what Find out, was he crazy or was he sane? What the fuck was John Brown? I think he's in that kind of brave insanity kind of place that makes him such an interesting anti-hero. And with that, guys, thanks for watching. I tell you what, I have videos right along here. They're interesting, and check them out. Please don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you guys very soon when I have my next video up. All right, have a great one.